What is going on, everybody? Welcome to a new round of MTGA Tasting Notes. Today, we are getting into our 2022 Repechage red wine, our red blend. Something that we've been doing over the last, it's been almost 6 years that we've been making this wine now as a great kind of addition to our lineup. Ever since we added on Cabernet and had a little bit of spare Cabernet and Merlot to blend together, we started crafting this wine to kind of be a great staple in between what our Cab program has become and of course what our Merlot program has been historically since we started MTGA back in 2010. This will be the 2022 vintage, a vintage that was excellent as we were rolling into the month of September and starting to bring fruit in, and then all of a sudden just a giant heat spike rolls through. We're talking about 110, 115 degrees for 5 to 7 days, plus very warm days on either end, a little bit of rain after that heat spike. And it was a point in time where us winemakers, especially coming to our big reds that may or may not have been ready to harvest at that point, of figuring out, hey, is this something that we can actually bring in and something that we can start making, or do we need to wait for this heat to make sure that the wine is going to be as good as we could possibly make it? Now, we are on kind of the latter end of that, very luckily enough, between our Merlot vineyards, our Cabernet vineyard, and Cabernet Franc vineyard for that matter. These were all picks that we were able to schedule after the fact. We were able to survive that heat. We were able to irrigate those vines quite a bit and extend the growing season and not bring in this fruit too soon. Now, the resulting wines are some of the biggest, baddest wines we've ever made. For those of you that received a little bit of our 2022 single barrel Merlot this winter or the 2022 Cab Franc, you know exactly what I'm talking about. These 22s are just going to be really full-bodied, really intense, very representative of the vintage that they came from. Now, this is a blend that very typically is Merlot heavy. Many of you know this, is that we focus on Merlot, and as a result, that leads the charge when it comes to this wine. And Cabernet Sauvignon very typically is what kind of helps balance it out. Every once in a while, I mean one other time before this vintage, we've used a significant amount of Cabernet Franc in the blend to help, really bring everything that you would expect to the table and kind of make sure that this wine is as consistent as possible. That would have been 2019. That was the last time that we used a significant amount of Cabernet Franc in this wine. This 2022 vintage really deemed it necessary for us to use a good chunk of that as well. So the final blend on this actually ended up being 42% Merlot, 50% Cabernet Sauvignon, repeat myself here, 42% Merlot, 40% Cabernet Sauvignon, and 18% Cabernet Franc. That adds up to 100, right? 40, 42, and 18, math checks out. So the Merlot is still the dominant factor at a whole whopping 42%. The Cabernet Sauvignon, really kind of helps level it out there. But what this wine needed was a little extra structure, a little bit of extra backbone to it, and that's why there's 18% Cabernet Franc blended into this. It was just what the wine needed to make sure that it had everything that you would expect, and also to help make sure that it was consistent from one year to the next. Many of you know that kind of my theory on vintages and how we operate as winemakers is that every vintage is in essence kind of a different chapter in the same book, right? You want it to continue the story. You don't want it to be a complete departure from the story you're telling, but you also don't want to repeat yourself. Having to read the same thing over and over and over and over again is just no fun, right? So we want to make sure that there is at least something new and different and interesting for you to enjoy, but at the same time, it still has to tie back into the wines that we've made previously. So even though we have years like this where the blend might vary quite a bit from what we've done kind of historically in terms of like the average of what we do, that blending helps allow us ensure that these wines are consistent. And that's something that I think we've really been able to find with this 2022 vintage. Now, this is something that is everything that you would expect a red blend to be. Very approachable, very sexy right up front. This is a great wine that you can just kind of enjoy at your leisure. It doesn't need to be something that you have to age. It doesn't need to be something that you have to decant. This is really meant to be something that you can just pop, pour, and enjoy at a moment's notice when it just sounds good and you need that big glass of red wine to enjoy. So with that, let's go ahead and stick our nose in here and see how she's doing. Now, it's very typical of this wine to be very fruit driven. On the nose side of things, you get your kind of blackberries, your fresh figs, things of that nature, kind of more darker fruits, but very fresh. It still has that nice kind of brightness to it. Some of the oak characteristics really are popping right now too. You get a little bit of that toastiness there, some of that vanilla, some of those baking spices, they're just kind of hanging out in the periphery. So not overwhelming, just a really nice component. And that was something that we did do in 2022 is we did add a little bit more new oak to some of these wines. It helped balance out kind of that juiciness and that jamminess that we were experiencing from a really hot stretch of weather that we had during harvest. And it's the thing that's probably the biggest difference in this wine compared to previous vintages is going to be the tannin. Typically the tannin, because it's Merlot heavy, is a little bit softer, a little bit more velvety. Because we needed to add a little bit more Cab Franc to this, it's a little chewier. And that's okay, something that's not abnormal for this particular wine, but you certainly feel it a little bit more than prior vintages. It still has that really nice, beautiful kind of finish that just kind of goes and goes and goes. It's still very smooth, very approachable, but there is just a little bit more grip in there than what you may be familiar with in this wine. Unless you've had some of that 2019 or maybe still have some bottles that laying around, that'll probably be the most similar when it comes to kind of comparing vintages of this. But the great thing is that even though it has kind of that little bit of extra structure and kind of extra bite to it, it's not overpowering. It's not like it's something that hits you upside the head or the taste buds and kind of overwhelms you. It still has this really nice, just even keel to it, which is where I always want this wine to be, because that's what, frankly, I think a red blend should be. It should be very approachable. It should be very complex with all the different components that you're pulling in to create it. And it should be kind of that, just like we kind of mentioned, kind of that pop and pour, just drink it at your leisure kind of red wine. It's something that I continue to enjoy making quite a bit. It's one of my biggest challenges when it comes to blending this, because we always blend our Merlot first, Cabernet second, and we have barrels kind of set aside for this as that aging process goes on. But there's always kind of bits and pieces and other components that I'm pulling in. I'm never really sure exactly what that percentage is going to be or what those components are going to do to the wine until we actually sit down and do it. This 2022 probably took me 4 or 5 different iterations and blending sessions to really dial it in and make sure that it was everything that it should be. As a result, it was a very fun wine to create, a very challenging wine to create, but something that is going to be, I think, very, very enjoyable for you all once it arrives at your door. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of great information, kind of background on this wine. Be sure to check out some of the other tasting notes here on our YouTube channel. You can also subscribe to the YouTube channel here or follow us on any of our social networks at MTGA Wines for more regular updates here in the cellar, kind of what we're doing and how we're going about our winemaking, blending sessions, all that good stuff. So take care, have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you again here soon. Cheers.